Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves is the second attempt to bring the famous fantasy tabletop game to the big screen. It tells the story of a band of thieves played by Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Justice Smith, and Sophia Lillis, who are on a quest looking for a lost relic so that they can use it to right a personal wrong and maybe make a little bit of money on the side, but may have for once bitten off a bit more than they can chew. Now, full disclosure, I know next to nothing about Dungeons & Dragons as a franchise. I know it's a fantasy role-playing game, and that's about it. So anything that I say regarding this film should be taken as someone who knows next to nothing about this franchise. Having said that, this was a blast. A completely enjoyable medieval fantasy adventure comedy from start to finish. This is a film that is consistently likable to a fault. It genuinely feels like it enjoys its own source material and genuinely wants the audience to have fun watching it and immersing themselves in it. This film really does want to transport you into a whole new fantasy world, and it does it with stunning ease. I bought this world existing. This is a world that feels lived in, one that you could walk around and explore in. Which makes sense when you consider the years and years of lore that this film would be able to pull from to make this world feel so inhabited. Despite the film's goofy tone, this movie understands that it needs to take the mythos, the weight of this world, and the magic system seriously. I would consider the CGI here to be good. I mean, obviously the CGI doesn't look so good that it looks like that it's really there, which is to be expected when there is so much CGI in here, but what's more important is that the designs in here are really creative. It actually looks good. And honestly, helping matters is that the set designs are absolutely wonderful. And there's a lot of standout moments in this film too. Like the scene where the heroes are being hunted down by an obese dragon, which is a hilarious image in and of itself. The scene of the heroes performing what I can only describe as a reverse heist, and it takes full advantage of its setting to do so. And the final payoff at the end of the climax was genuinely fantastic and was so brilliantly set up that I didn't see it coming. But ultimately, what ties everything together and really elevates this into something that was so great for me was the characters. This film does a magnificent job at setting up characters, making you understand them and enjoy being around them, and it does it very quickly. And all the actors they got for these roles are pitch perfect. Chris Pine is an extremely likable lead, and this is him at his most Chris Pine, but in a good way. Michelle Rodriguez is excellent as the muscle, Justice Smith is great as a sloppy sorcerer, Sophia Lillis was intriguing as a human-hating shapeshifter, and I am hoping I get this right, Regé-Jean Page also stands out playing a character that's so perfect at everything in every way that you kind of understand why Chris Pine's character doesn't trust him, and yet you still like him nonetheless. These characters are likable, but they're also given relatable flaws to make them interesting and compelling, and they bounce off of each other in different ways. Most importantly, this is a film that understands that the camaraderie, the rapport, the back and forth between these characters is essential. By the time the film reaches its third act, it genuinely feels like these characters have formed a unit, and it helps give this film a real heart at its seemingly cynical center. Most of my complaints are kind of nitpicks. Like, the main villain, Safina, in this is a little boring. She just seems kind of like a generic doomsday antagonist, and that's about it. Daisy Head does the absolute best she can and does bring some menace to the role, but the writing for her character wasn't the best. But even then, we still get a really fun villain courtesy of Hugh Grant, who just plays such a nasty, conniving person, but Grant's performance really gives him a presence and makes him ooze despicableness in such a fun way. So yeah, even though we do get the generic dull villain, we also get a really fun one too. So I can only complain so much about that. And of course, as to be expected for a film like this, yeah, not every single joke lands, although I can't really say this one had any jokes that were so bad that it made me groan, which, you know, that's always a plus. And parts of this film are a little predictable, like the big emotional payoff at the ending is pretty obvious what they're going to do because it was telegraphed too obviously. The only thing about this film that I truly disliked was that there was one brief shot in this film that utilized shaky cam that was very disorientating and really distracting. But honestly, if I'm saying that these are my biggest concerns, especially when some of them come with positive caveats, I'd say that's a sign that you're watching a pretty good film. Now, can I guarantee that you'll enjoy this as much as I did? No, of course not. But I can honestly say this feels like a film that we just don't see that much of anymore. This is a fantasy, adventure, comedy that is actually well made. It was fun, it was smart, it always kept my interest. I was never lost, the pacing was fantastic, and most importantly, I loved being around these characters. This film is good old-fashioned escapism done right, and is easily the most fun time I've had in the theaters so far this year. Which was a huge surprise because, to be honest, I was not expecting it to be that good. And to have it turn out this entertaining was a huge shock to me. It has no business being this good. But it is, and I'm so grateful that it is. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves gets a big, full shot. That review you just heard was an excerpt from my weekly review show This Weekend, where I review 5 brand new movies every single weekend. If you would like to check that out, then make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss it. And as always, if you want to see more of my reviews, you can check out my Letterboxd account. The link is in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.